we are 10 days away from Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev. And I want to, in this video, break down 3 key factors for each of them, what they need to do to be successful in this fight, in pushing their game plan, what my game plan I think should be for each of them, what they need to do to win, have a successful fight, and stay safe and possibly finish their opponent. So starting first, Islam Makhachev, I think he needs to stay on the front foot, pressure Jack Della Maddalena up against the cage, and then shoot his takedowns, and making sure that he sets up his takedowns, which gets him to the third point, sets up his takedowns with good striking fundamentals. He can't shoot off of nothing. That's when Alexander Volkanovski had the most success, is when Islam Makhachev would force these takedowns and shoot off of nothing. He needs to set up his takedowns with striking. But also, he can't get backed up against the cage. So pressuring forward against Jack Della Maddalena, pressuring forward, strike, takedown, and chaining takedowns together. Because I don't think often he will have a ton of success landing like a blast double on Jack. I think Jack will have success stopping that. So Islam needs to chain these takedowns, double, single, body lock. Unorthodox takedowns like Islam did against Dustin Poirier. I don't think often he will have the most success just with pure fundamental takedowns against Jack Della Maddalena. I think he's going to need to change things up and scramble. So that moves into the second point. Look for submissions and scrambles. Jack Della Maddalena has gotten in trouble quite often before in his scrambles, which is one of his best attributes for Jack, is his scrambling ability. Not accepting a position and moving into scrambling out of these positions, but in those scrambles that he's so good at the same time, he leaves openings. When he was fighting Bilal, he would leave these openings, but Bilal wouldn't snatch up on them like Islam might, because that's just not Bilal's game. Bilal isn't a slick submission artist like Islam Makhachev, like a Charles Oliveira. Bilal's a guy, in my opinion, I know he gets a lot of crap. I think he is very good. I think Bilal is very good. His control, his pressure, his top game is very good. He just doesn't have the submission threat that a guy like Islam Makhachev has. And then the third point, do not shoot a takedown without striking first. Do not shoot a takedown off of nothing. I mentioned before. I put up this picture here. This was in the 5th round against Alexander Volkanovski, who's a much smaller, much less powerful opponent. He got clipped. He was tired. He went to go shoot what looked like it was going to be a double. And he got clipped with a right hand from Alexander Volkanovski because he didn't set it up. He was feeling a little more tired. He wasn't, wanting to put as much out there. He just wanted to get him down and get the fight over with. And Volk ended up clipping him and winning the 5th round. That could have been a turn of the fight. That fight was just razor close. And I think if he does that against Jack Della Maddalena up at this higher weight class, it could be a problem. Volk has never been known to hit extremely hard. Jack hits hard. He is one of the hardest hitters at 170. So I could see that being a problem for Jack. One thing I didn't mention on here is cardio. I'm interested to see, I can't comment on it and say it's gonna be bad, because obviously we haven't seen Islam at 170 with added muscle mass. He's been talking about taking creatine. For all you people out there that don't take creatine, take it. It's very good for you, for your brain and your body. But that's besides the point right now. With this added muscle, added size, I'm curious to see how it affects Islam's cardio. I think it could be better. The weight cut could have been affecting his cardio. He hadn't been getting tired, or he hadn't been getting gas per se in these recent fights against Dustin and Volk, but he's definitely been getting tired. And I'm curious to see, maybe with this added weight and in body strikes from Jack, he might gas. I mean, listen, I don't want to say he will, because that's just speculative, purely speculative. But I think it's quite possible that with the added weight and some of the best body work in the UFC, maybe the best body work in the UFC throughout a fight from Jack, I could see him possibly gassing. But those are my 3 keys for Islam Makhachev. I think if he gets to the ground and looks, I think his best chance to finish this fight, I don't think he's going to knock down Jack Della Maddalena and finish him. I don't think he's going to take his back and submit him. That's not really his game, and that's not where Jack has the most problems. I think it's in these scrambles. Islam Makhachev can do what he did to, more or less, to Renato Moicano. I think he can have something very similar to that and snatch up a Darce and finish the fight there. That's, I think, where he will have the most success in this fight. Moving on to Jack Della Maddalena. This, before we get into it, I put this picture up here. I think if Jack gets into this position, which he has, this isn't a one-time thing. He has multiple times in his career, gets into this position. This is a prime place for Islam to snatch up a Darce or any other, guillotine Darce, any sort of scramble-esque submission. So he's got to be very, very wary of this. But getting into the keys for Jack Della Maddalena, pressure. Listen, controlling the center of the octagon, pressure, backing Islam up and not getting backed up himself. If he's backing up Islam Makhachev, keeping him on the back foot, Islam won't have takedowns from there. It's so hard to shoot a takedown off the back foot. If Jack has Islam Makhachev backed up against the cage himself, that's where he's going to have the most success in stopping the takedowns, which I think is obviously one of the most important things in this fight. The second key I put to him is be wary during scrambles, which is why I put this video or this picture up here, which is why I mentioned it in Islam's keys, is to snatch up those submissions that Jack does leave open. I'm sure Jack has worked on this. He's been getting better, but he still leaves those open because he does scramble so well and doesn't accept positions. He does, of course, leave those submissions open. So he has to be careful during his scrambles. And then the third, I think maybe the most important key for him in finishing the fight, in winning the fight, not just not getting finished, but in himself finding his own success in winning the fight, is body work. With Islam moving up, he's going to have more muscle mass on him. He might gas. Jack has to, pressure Islam Makhachev, cut him off, move him up against the cage, and body work. Hook to the body, hook over top. Like he does so well in these fights. How many times in the Bilal Muhammad fight did he work to the body so well and up to the head? Randy Brown, that's how he dropped him. Body, head. Just that will win him the fight. If he's able to get going early on his body work, landing damage to the body and then to the head, uppercuts. If he takes a step back, be ready for an uppercut, to stop these takedowns. He does so well about when he's not striking, he keeps a high guard, but he keeps a high guard differently than everyone else. He keeps a high guard but a low body position, right? So he's got the high guard, which often, like you saw against Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus du Plessis, a high guard leaves you open to takedowns. Jack Della Maddalena, however, he keeps a high guard but a low body position. So when, say, someone shoots in a takedown, he ducks down like this, right? And uses his guard to push off and post off of people trying to shoot a takedown on him. However, the one thing with that is, if you can get a good enough feint, I mean, I don't know if this is possible, but a good enough feint and get him to go down, those, like a body lock over the top, Darce sort of thing might be there. But I don't think that's very likely. He does such a good job, though, about getting his body level low to stop these double legs. He has to stay on the front foot, though, to not let Islam Makhachev get him up against the fence. But I think if he works these body strikes are often, body, head, like I said, And, I think he'll have a ton of success. I think he'll win this fight. I think, though, just the one key, the most important defensively thing, I don't see Islam Makhachev. He's a very good striker. His striking is still very underrated, Islam's. I don't think he's going to chin Jack. Jack has a good, he can take a punch well. Islam's been fighting at the lower weight classes. I'm not worried about him getting, like chinned. But just those scrambles, he has to be so, so careful. And if he is, I really don't see him losing this fight. I see him winning this fight dominantly. I see him getting taken down. Like, I don't think there's a world where Islam lands 0 takedowns. I just think when Islam takes Jack down, he will get up. I'm very confident that he will get up. I just think he has to be careful while getting up. So those are my 3 keys for Jack Della Maddalena, and just kind of want to get into my final thoughts, my final prediction, because this is a prediction video as well as a breakdown video. And just the final thought, I think, like I've been going through this whole time, whoever's pressuring forward will win this fight. Whoever controls the center. Obviously, like, there's other factors as well, but whoever controls the center of the octagon and moves forward will win this fight. If Jack's pressuring Islam up against the fence and is stubborn and not moving backwards, I think he'll win this fight. I think if Islam Makhachev is pressuring Jack forward, and backs him up and shoots his takedowns off of Jack backing up, I think he'll win this fight. But I think Jack's going to have the most success. I think round 1, Islam might take him down, maybe 3 to 4 minutes in the first round. Jack's going to get up right before the end of the first round, but they might give Islam that first round. Second round, couples takedown stuffed. Islam, has less success. Jack wins the second round. Third and fourth round, Jack starts coming on. Body shots. Islam gets a little more tired. Fails a couple more takedowns. I think maybe he'll get 2 takedowns this fight. Maybe 3. Maybe 1 in the first round, 1 in the second round, maybe 2 in the second round if he's lucky. I just don't see him having a ton of success in this fight. I think Jack Della Maddalena is going to control this fight, pressuring Islam Makhachev. He's much bigger. I have up a tail of the tape up here. Jack isn't much taller, but I just think much thicker. He's going to look much bigger than Islam. Islam was a giant lightweight, but Jack is a very big welterweight. There's the bone density of the size is very different. But my final prediction, I do think Jack Della Maddalena is going to win this fight as a plus 220 underdog, which besides the point, I think is crazy. I will be putting money on him. I dropped a video previously about how I am avoiding, in most cases, betting on this sport anymore. I still love the sport, and I'm still going to be dropping prediction videos and all that. I'm going to avoid betting as much as possible. But this just seems absurd to me. My final prediction, Jack Della Maddalena, rounds 3 to 4. Around that time, maybe late round 3, I think he's going to finish Islam Makhachev via TKO. I think he's going to work the body strikes well throughout the fight. Islam might drop his hands. And I think Jack's going to catch him with a right hook and drop him and finish him up with ground strikes. I don't think he was going to put him out cold. But I do think he's going to finish him via TKO. That's just how I think this fight's going to go. I'm super excited for this. This is maybe since as long as over a year at least, the most excited I've been for a single fight in the UFC. I'm very confident. Despite the odds, I'm very confident Jack to get this done. I think that's insane. If you want to make money, put money on Jack Della Maddalena. That's just my opinion. I do think, Islam gets a lot of hate. I don't hate him whatsoever. I don't want to say a fan because he's not particularly one of my favorite fighters, but I have the utmost respect for him. And I do think when it comes to Dagestani fighters, I do think his game is one of the more exciting for Dagestani fighters because he is dangerous. He does finish fights. I just don't think this fight at 170 is the right fight for him. I think Jack has the best style and best game plan maybe around him in general in the UFC to stop Islam Makhachev. I think he finishes. I'm pretty confident that he finishes his fight via TKO. But I appreciate you guys watching this breakdown. Let me know if you think I missed anything. I'm really confident in my points that I put forward, and I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys could subscribe, I'll have a full card breakdown next week on this whole card. But I wanted to get my full in-depth breakdown on just this fight in particular out before that. But I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.